date. Yes, please, just
I definitely don't have any contestants or any doubts. My question was actually regarding two topics, two manuscripts, and also a particular community that you mentioned in the very beginning when you were talking about Suryanical. The first is about manuscript 99. Is it a later adaptation or is it translation? Because manuscript 99 is on the Eucharistic hymns. Is it a later edition or is it a translation? Yes, the one in Mamana. The second question is definitely I would like to know more about the book of Venaha, which is alleged to be having maybe magic, as you mentioned. Has there been a translation on the manuscript, or is it under study, or is it maybe, as you said, is it related to sorcery, or is it related to exorcism? Because I've seen one manuscript, but just wanted to know whether that manuscript is the same. The third question is relating to the ethnic community that we were talking about when you were talking about Suryanigal. Why did you say that it was a specific ethnic community, and what is the background behind that ethnic community? Thank you.
Okay, these are many questions. So you will have to remind me of your questions.
Sure.
So I didn't perfectly understand the question about 99.
Mm-hmm.
You mean that one which I presented?
Yes.
It is explicitly the hymn, the memory is attributed to Alexander Gross Leminaya, Csándi Kaduthuruthy, and this is the only attributed work of Csándi, which was included in it's for the feast of the Eucharist.
Corpus.
So it's included in the festal cycle. And later, based on this, we were able to identify a series of his works which are not named because this hymn was also included in another Manana manuscript, but anonymously, together with several similar hymns. And so we understood that all these hymns were written by him. Another thing is, and all this needs a lot of detailed philological work, a student of mine, Radu Mustafa, has published a sermon in Syriac about St. Thomas, which is very clearly by Rose. It's his style, it's recognizable. Now there is a hymn based on this sermon, which was included in the festal celebrations and which I found in a Paris manuscript, which was the personal prayer book, or not prayer book, but the personal celebration book, breviary of Mar Csándi Karavil, Alexander de Campo. And it is in the Bibliothèque Nationale in Paris. I think I identified it as his person. And there, for July 3, the celebration of St. Thomas Feast, you have a similar memorial in the style of Csándi Kaduthuruthy, based on that sermon of Rose. So we see here how these people were interacting, and also the aim of Rose to create a circle of learning by indigenous priests whom he was teaching, because he had the grand aim to bring up the local Catholic hierarchy to the level of European erudition, and also using the local erudition.
But my question regarding manuscript 99 was much more related to, has it been translated? In the Syriac tradition, when you look into the Eucharistic hymns, we have the song Kollan Dashine, which is not now commonly used, but it is a Eucharistic hymn. So the translation is basically coming from the Latin text Tantumaru. So we were trying to find manuscripts related to Eucharistic hymn. So when you mentioned about the hymn, I was asking the question whether is it a translation of Tantumergo or is it a text written just by
it's an original text.
Okay.
It's an original text composed in Syria much earlier than your text. And I wonder whether it has ever been translated to Malayalam because they were not using Malayalam. The Malayalam translations from Latin come much later. And the Malayalam translations from Syria come even later. So this is what I try to present, that the community only wanted Syriac at that time.
A follow-up question to the same question. Can we find it in Vatican Syriac archives online, or is the manuscript possible?
No, the next question that you have not posed is something that I cannot answer. Why? I don't know.
Thank you. The second question was related to the book that you mentioned from Mardanaha.
Yes.
The book on the magic. This is what we said. Has that been translated? The reason I am asking that question is it has been always said that the Syrian community never had an exorcism book, an official text. But it is interesting that one of my colleagues and a student at Valiapally is now doing a licentiate on the work. So I just wanted to know whether the book was on a specific topic, has it been studied, is it translated? That was the question.
So these books are mentioned by the Portuguese. They speak about two books and sometimes identify them. One is the Livro da Sortes, a book of laws, which is a divinatory book. And the other is this Paresman, as they say it. And we know that it is Parsimana because it's also translated as the Persian book. And these were condemned to be burnt at Diantha, and these were believed to be laws. And a student of ours, Teres Petteri, has found no less than 7 copies of the Book of Laws, which is called in Malayalam Papustakam, or Tabar the Pal in Syria. 4 variants of Syriac text and 3 Malayalam translations. So, and this is found in late manuscripts up to the second half of the 19th century, which shows that this practice was maintained after all the condemnation, and the practice was called Kanketuvidya, so blind divination. And at the end of one of these manuscripts in the Connaught Library, I discovered a little fragment of the Parisman. That is a Farsinan, which is a fantastic text. I have translated but have not yet published. Only one copy, and it's only a fragment of this Persian medicine book about what kind of text one has to recite to expel certain illnesses. But because apparently the practical thought of the local people did not consider this efficient enough, there is a Garshan Malayalam edition for the use of the Parashana. From this we know that that was the Parashana. For the use, and this contains Ayurvedic recipes. So it was not enough to make it's not exorcism. It was not enough to, I don't know whether it's magic, because it's prayers. But it was not considered sufficient enough. So they added Ayurveda.
The third question, it will be the final question. I need to respect the time of the others. So my question is related to the ethnic community that you were mentioning at the beginning when we were talking about the Suryanigal. Why is it called a specific ethnic Christian community that is there? Can you shed more lights on that? Thank you.
The Persian Christians were called Suryani, and it's very clear that it is this term which is adopted here in India because it was an extension of the Persian Church. It doesn't mean that originally it was that. It means that at a certain time, perhaps in the 6th century, or even earlier, if we consider Thomas of Cana coming in 345, this church here, which was earlier perhaps founded by St. Thomas, came under the jurisdiction of the Persian Church. And the local Christians were called Suryani to express that they belonged to the Persian Church. But why the original Christians of the Persian Church were speaking Syriac? Even Mani was from such a community, some heretical Syriac-speaking community, because he was writing in Syriac. Here it meant belonging to the Persian Church, which doesn't mean that the liturgical language was not Syriac, but it was only the liturgical language. That's what I mean. Yes, I think you also wanted to ask something there. Just so please, I think.
Dr. Perczel,
Yes.
you have been talking about the importance of Syriac or Suryani, which we were using in the ancient times of this community.
Yes.
For Indians as a whole, it was a very important word, it was very dear to Indian, especially for Kerala. Because till 1964, our holy mass in the churches were conducted in Syriac only. Even there are very few in our community that we are still conversing with the language and we are conducting the holy mass in this Syriac. We thank you for throwing more light on our limited knowledge in this particular subjects. Second thing, see the people who are sitting here, they are the descendants of Knight Thoma who came to India in AD 345, along with Urhaba. Sorry. See, the people who are sitting here, they are all the descendants of Knight Thoma who migrated to India from Edessa in AD 345, along with the Bishop for Urhaba also. In your studies or the research work you have been doing on this specific community, could you find anything about, could you get any details of these great two personalities who came to India in your research work? Second thing is, before we, or the Canaanites, so-called Canaanites who came to 345 in India, there were St. Thomas Christians in India. Even there are people who claiming that this church, which is constructed years back, is constructed by not by Canaanites, it was constructed by the St. Thomas Christians. Have you got any proof or solid proof to say that St. Thomas has visited this country in AD 52? These are two questions I want to ask you, sir.
Yes, I began with this, that I can only speak about the evidence. And we know that there were intense trade contacts between India and the Mediterranean world in the 1st century. So there is nothing impossible in someone like St. Thomas coming here. So there is nothing impossible in it. No evidence. There was recently my mind was that I Now can we? So there was a big book written by a very good scholar called Nebuchadnezzar, trying to prove the historicity of the coming of Saint Thomas, but I don't see that he was able to prove. Mostly he was also referring to very obscure documents, an inscription in a Hindu temple that nobody has seen, and things like that. What scholarship can establish is that there is nothing excluding the possibility that St. Thomas came here, but there is no evidence besides the traditions. The problem with Nai Thomas is that the copper plates were lost. And the Tarisapali chapter doesn't have anything from the Thomas of Cana copper plates, but in an indirect tradition, in a Darshani Malayan transcript of the lost second half of the fourth plate, there is something about Nai Thomas, even the date. But the date is an astrological date, and for the time being, nobody could solve the riddle for it. This is what I can say from the point of view of the scholars. And this is why I was only speaking about those things for which I had evidence. Yes, please.
My question is simple. Of course, Aramaic language as well as Syriac, Syriac language. It was the language once upon a time used by common people as a spoken language, and it was also used in trade and all. And obviously, for us, it is our liturgical. It has been our liturgical language. Now, at the time of the Synod of November, most or much of the narratives of the Syro-Malabar Church, the liturgical, the gist of the liturgy and the theology, the history, everything was lost or went off. And now I just want to know just one thing, simple. Are we now living on the fragments of history or the fragments of the narratives of the Syro-Malabar Church?
Thank you for this excellent question. When I came to India to work, to get access to the archives and to study the archives, I had a hypothesis. And this hypothesis was that I cannot imagine an intelligent and resilient people who would simply submit their most cherished manuscripts to a foreign occupying power who wanted to burn them. And so I expected to find the condemned manuscripts in those archives. And in fact, we have found them one after the other, which means that these texts, which were condemned at the time, and we have the list. These texts, the people simply kept them copying up to the 19th century. And I have another presentation once when I come back. I'm very happy to show to you the list of all those condemned manuscripts that we have found, identifying them, because sometimes the Portuguese could not identify them, just they list them, something like that. But now we can tell because we found the manuscripts. This is one thing. The other thing is, and these are the manuscripts that were condemned. Apparently, the manuscripts were lost, but the texts were copied, and we should really use them. These magic texts, which we found, were American, the condemned texts. But this is just the most spectacular thing, that even the magic we can find. But the other thing is, this I did not expect, but now I understand very normal, that those Jesuits who collected the manuscripts were scholars. And scholars will not burn the manuscripts. So what they did was, they kept them in a library, and the library was inherited from the Jesuits by the Carmelites, who replaced them. And up to the 19th century, the manuscripts that were confiscated and the Portuguese pretended to have burned them were kept in the library of Valiapally. Now, I have seen two manuscripts from this library of Valiapally. One was stolen by Claudius Buchanan, who in 1806 visited the library and described in his diary what he found there. And he says, I saw several manuscripts with the Latin writing, either as prohibitus or hereticus. This is a prohibited or heretical book. Now, in the Buchanan Library in Cambridge, there is such a book where it is written as prohibitus, hereticus, because he also stole one of those books. And it's a miscellany only with texts condemned by Diaper, and very interesting text. So we should publish the miscellany as it is, because it's a fantastic document from Diaper. It was confiscated by the Jesuits. They pretended to have burnt it, and they kept it. Went to the Carmelites, and from the Carmelites, Buchanan stole the manuscript and deposited it in Cambridge. And the other one was stolen by Mark Louis Barre-Parambil, who was a member of the discussed Carmelites, and they expelled him because he wanted indigenous hierarchy. And when he came, he stole the nomocanon of Mar Abraham with Mar Abraham's handwritten person Nestorius, which is on the first page. And it is written, quickly were pertiniata Carmelitas discalcatos. So this book is in the possession of the discast Carmelites. So it was there, and he stole it. And my big question is, because we were told that there are no manuscripts at Valiapally, I am not still sure that the manuscripts are not there.
Very interesting. Thank you. Thank you.
So we are at the end of this discussion session. I know most of you have many more questions to ask, and I believe that if anyone is answered, the question is end there.